So today I'm going to be making pumpkin snickerdoodles, and I did some searching online and couldn't find a recipe that I like, so I ended up writing one myself. And this is actually my first time making this, so I am hoping that it turns out okay. And if it is good, I will leave the recipe down in the description so you can try it for yourself. If you have made pumpkin pies recently and you have some puree left over, this is a great recipe to use that up because it only uses a small amount. Okay, let's get started. So for this recipe, you're going to need 1 cup of butter or margarine, 1.5 cups of sugar, 2 eggs, 2 teaspoons of vanilla, 1/2 cup of pumpkin puree, 3 cups of flour, 2 teaspoons baking powder, a teaspoon of salt, 4 teaspoons of cinnamon, 1 teaspoon of cloves, and 1 teaspoon of ground ginger. So I started out by creaming together the margarine and sugar. And if your butter or margarine is too hard, you can put it in the microwave for a few seconds to soften it up. As you can see, I'm using a fork to cream the butter and sugar together, but you can also do this with either a stand mixer or a hand mixer, but there isn't really any fancy equipment required. You can just do this with a fork and it works just fine. Once that was a smooth consistency, I added in the eggs and the vanilla and mixed that together. And then I added in the pumpkin puree. And you can use pumpkin puree that's either from a can or you can roast a pumpkin yourself. It doesn't really matter. Either way works. So after that was all mixed together, I added in half the amount of flour and the remaining dry ingredients. You can mix in all the flour at once if you want, but it is easier to mix together if you just do half first, and then once that's mostly mixed together, add in the rest of the flour. And you can see here I'm using a 1/2 teaspoon instead of a full teaspoon because I couldn't find my teaspoon at the time. I think it was buried at the bottom of the sink, so I just went with a 1/2 instead. So I'm just giving that a mix to incorporate everything. And then add in the remainder of the flour. And when you're mixing this all together, make sure that you get right down to the bottom of the bowl, just to make sure that all the flour is evenly incorporated into the dough. And once the dough was all done, I took a 1/4 cup
of white sugar and added in 2 teaspoons of cinnamon. And mix that together. And then I used a cookie scoop and put each scoop of dough into the cinnamon sugar and rolled it around to cover it evenly. And I used a cookie scoop just to keep the size of all the cookies consistent, but if you don't have a cookie scoop, you can just use a spoon or even your hands and just roll the dough into balls. And then once they're coated in the cinnamon sugar, it's just onto the pan. As you'll see in a bit, my cookies actually didn't spread out very much. So for the cookies that I baked after this, I actually flattened them at this stage. I just squished them with my palm to flatten them out a bit. And then once your cookie sheet is full, it's just into the oven at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for 12 minutes.
So cookies are done. Let's see how they turned out. So first of all, the dough ended up being a little softer than I was expecting, and they also didn't spread out as much as I had hoped as well. They taste good. They're not bad. They're actually a little more bland than I thought they would be. I put in a fair amount of cinnamon, but I would almost put in more if I were to make these again. Maybe put in 2 tablespoons. Still, they're nice. They're soft. But yeah, I would have thought they would spread out more, especially with the dough being so soft. So I think the recipe could use some tweaking, but if you're interested in trying it, I'll still leave it down below. They taste good. If you do give these a try, let me know how they turned out, and let me know if you made any adjustments and how that worked out for you. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.